I will say it's much more comfortable to be out there. I actually come to you in gratitude today. I'm going to share a story with you. It will be emotional. It's going to be raw at times. I'm going to talk quickly. But I want to share with you some things that I've gone through that I think are important, and I feel that God talked to me, and He wanted me to share them with you. And I want to share why I'm a warrior, and why I believe that you are too. I want to thank all of you beautiful people and special guests for being with me today. A few years ago, I went through a time that I would call my grief trials, and this was a 2-year period where I began to experience a lot of things, lose things that were very important to me. It began that I lost my very first child to a miscarriage, then I lost my dad, then I lost my brother to suicide. I would have surgery that left me then crippled. I would have a stillborn little girl, and then to top everything off, my husband left me for another woman. And I was in a place of despair, depression. I felt like I was in this deep, dark pit. I would look up and I would try to find the light, but I could not see it. And I was in a really bad way. And after 2 years, I just felt like I was being hit in the head by a 2x4, and I was weak, and I was struggling. And I wound up overdosing on pain medication that I'd gotten for my knee. And this would be my rock bottom. And I would get up and I would feel like my knees were bloody. I would feel like my fingers were broken from trying to pull out of that pit. But there was a couple at church, and they would say, Shellie, no matter what you do, you just keep holding on to God's hand. And I was trying like heck to do that. And then a Christian woman came to my door, and she sat on my couch, and she was consoling me. And I was pouring my heart out to her, and I said, Eva, I don't understand why all these things are happening. I've always tried to be a good person, and why all this calamity? And she said, Shellie, today I sit on your couch because I too have been through hard times, and it has allowed me to be able to sit with you and give you love and compassion. And a year from now, you may be sitting on someone else's couch doing the same thing, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I'm sorry to say at the time those words felt shallow. I was in such a dark place. I didn't completely understand all of that. It would take me years to completely digest that, but that day she gave me wisdom that I would later carry on. So I began to fight. I had 2 little boys. I'm their mom. I've got to be strong. I need to give them a good life. And so I got up and I started fighting because I am a soldier, right? I'm a warrior. And I got up and I cried for 2 years. I fought like hell for 3. I just kept climbing out of that pit until I was doing much better. And so I decided to go to a new church. And sure enough, if I didn't meet this new guy with a really unusual name, it was Dagger somebody. But anyway, Dagger and I wound up getting married, and guess what? We began going into really hard trials. I'm not going to talk about those today. That's a different story altogether. But after a few years, God made a job, I think just for me. He put it right in my lap. I wasn't looking for a job. And this was the perfect job for me. It encompassed all the things I had learned from those trials. I would be working at what's now Mind Springs Health, going into a mental hospital, dealing with people that dealt with mental illness. That might be schizophrenia, PTSD, bipolar, mood disorders, whatever it was, and I would help support them. And they hired me as one of the very first professional paid peers in the Grand Valley. And so I will be running groups, I'll be doing one-on-ones, I'll be going into the mental health hospital. Now this is the hardest job I've ever had. I had to pray every day to do it. It was not easy. And I would sometimes go into a crisis situation and I wouldn't know what to do, what to say. But God would just download information into my brain. I was so effective, I was powerful, not because of me, but because of what God was doing beside me. I accomplished amazing things. I began to be known as one of the best peers in the Grand Valley. Those are not my words. But I began to win awards that peers haven't won. I became a co-director to that program. I became a trainer, and I started training people like me to serve the community and to be peers. I loved it. It was wonderful. But after 5 years, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to start working with young people. My husband and I had worked at a charter school for 3 years, and I really missed that. So I quit that job, and I took a new job at Caris. You may know them as the House. They actually serve many, have many houses, and they serve young people from about ages 12 to about 22. I would be in a program that was at what they called Zoe House, so I'm working with young women that these kids come out of domestic violence. A lot of them are homeless, they have addiction, the same types of issues, you know, mental illness and things like that. And so I would be in a program where I would work with young women. They usually had children, they lived in a house. They had a period of time, and my job was that, as their advocate, was to help them to become independent. So I needed 3 things for that job. I had to have job experience, good qualifications. I had to be able to do copious amounts of data entry, and I also needed to drive, right? And so this is where my 6.5 years of health trials began. And it began with hemorrhages in my eyes. In my left eye, so severe that it would leave me completely blind. I only see black in my left eye now. And they did surgeries and everything and tried to save it, but they were unable to. So I'm in this job only 2 months, and I began having hemorrhages in my right eye. Well, when you have hemorrhages in your right eye and you're blind in your left eye, guess what? You're blind. I couldn't do data entry. I couldn't drive kids around. Overnight, I'm at home. All my friends and family work. I'm fighting to save my sight. I was isolated. It was hard. And I was trying to find myself. Now I'm on the other side of the desk, right? I've been on the side of the desk that has been the cheerleader, the teacher, the mentor, giving people resources, helping them fill out paperwork, just rah, 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 go, 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 talk, 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 constantly busy, to all of a sudden now, nothing. And I'm on the other side of the desk. I'm needing help. I need help filling out paperwork. I need help for resources. I'm using coping skills that I used to teach other people to use. My mental illness that had, when I was young, I dealt with really severe anxiety. It returned. I'm having panic attacks. I'm going into depression. But you know what? I'm a warrior. I get up and I start fighting. And when I fight, I start lifting weights. So I'm getting better, and then my best friend and her daughter, who I call my niece, my best friend who I've known like for 50 years, I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but anyway, they come to my door and they say, Shellie, this trial is feeling over, right? I'm doing better. I can now drive a little bit. You know, when you can't drive, you lose your independence. You know, that was really hard. And so now I'm driving like to Safeway and like in my neighborhood. And so they come, they say, we're going to go to Denver, we're going to celebrate. We're going to go to a concert. We're going to go to some museums, we're going to eat great food, it's going to be wonderful, yay. By this time, I've been isolated quite a while. I'm a little agoraphobic. But I get brave, I get in the car, we go to Denver, I can see the mountains, the trees, the stream, it's wonderful. We go to the museum, we go to the concert, we have a great time. After the concert, we're going to go to a restaurant. We're walking across the street, and there's a pothole, and I fall, and bam, I break my femur. Now, I have heard that breaking your femur is the most painful bone you can break. It's like labor. I don't know. I know I was screaming and crying. You can ask Chris and Jessica. But they take me by an ambulance to the ER. The ER does a x-ray, and guess what? I don't have a break. So an orderly comes up to me, I'm on the table, he's rude and condescending. He says, Shellie, you can get off the table, you can go out the door, you can quit the act. You're not hurt. You don't have a break. And I did something that's not typical for me. I advocated for myself. I stood up and said, no, there's something wrong. I am hurting. I can't walk. You've got to do something. And my friend backed me up. She's a strong woman. She wouldn't be crying like this if she were not having a problem here. So they decide to appease us. They're going to give me a CAT scan. Well, I don't have a break. So they take me from one table to another, and they just slam me on it like a pack of potatoes, you know. They bring me back into the ER, and the nurse comes up to me, and she looks very sheepishly at me. These are her exact words. She goes, oh, I'm bad. You do have a break. So they moved me upstairs. I have emergency surgery. My niece stays with me. I had trained her to be a peer. She's probably one of the best peers I know. She sits with me for about 3 or 4 days. I'm in delirium. I'm on morphine. I'm in the hospital for a week. I'm transferred to another hospital where I do rehabilitation for a week. They fly me home. I go to Horizon Towers, just up the road here. My kids watch me for a week. And during that time period, there was this beautiful Christian woman who makes me soup. She didn't even know who I was. She gives it to my kids, they give it to me. It just warmed my heart. And so I go home. To my horror, I've got steps everywhere. I have to learn how to walk again. Now, luckily, I had been lifting weights, right? So I was actually pretty strong physically. I start lifting weights again. That's what I do when I'm trying to recuperate. And so I get stronger. Trial over. Until I start having the abdominal pain. I'm not talking about that little stuff that you get. I'm talking about chronic pain, the kind of chronic pain that makes you want to die. The kind of chronic pain that steals your soul. I was hurting so terribly. I go to my doctor. He doesn't know what's wrong with me. I do some of my own research, and I come back and I say, could this be my gallbladder? Well, I don't know, Shellie. Let's send you to a specialist. So I go to a specialist. Now, in all fairness, I present really good. And what I mean by that is I worked for a medical office for years. I would see people like me come in, and they would be mean and nasty sometimes to the staff. I hated that. So I present sweet. I talk to the people. I want to know their story and make jokes. And so I'm sitting there talking to this doctor, and I can be in really severe pain and look like I'm pretty normal. And so he says, well, Shellie, he said, why don't you go home? If you still hurt in 3 weeks, you come on back and we'll take a look. So what do? I advocate again. I say, no, I can't handle this for 3 more weeks. I'm not going to make it. You've got to figure this out. And he said, well, jump up on this table. Let's take a look at you. So I get on the table. He palpates my abdomen and almost launches me into outer space. And he said, oh my gosh, Shellie, you hurt everywhere, except where your gallbladder is. You need to come back. We'll go in with a camera. We'll look around and figure out what's going on. I come back, I go into the hospital. He puts 4 holes in me. He goes in and looks around. He doesn't find anything. I think because he wasn't looking for a gallbladder. Anyway, he winds up sending me home. Now, when you heard the way I did, and you're going through the things that I'm going through, I can't eat now. I'm losing weight. My whole life I've tried to lose weight, right? I was always a fluffy girl. I'm losing weight, not even trying. It's kind of amazing in some ways, but not so good in others. So anyway, when you're like that, you only have a couple of options. One option is you go get street drugs. I wouldn't even know how to do it. That's not my idea of what to do. The other option is you go into the ER. So what happens when you go to an ER, you probably may know, you wait 5 or 6 hours, they give you an IV. I'm crying because I hurt so bad. They eventually give you an injection that gives you pain medication. They give you a small prescription of about 5 pills, and then they send you home. I take those pills, and I just take them like in the middle of the night. That's when you hurt the worst. And I would take a pill, and I would drag it out to the end of the week. I was on a cycle now. I was a frequent flyer. In red marker on my forehead, permanent marker, I might add, it said, crazy woman wants drugs. I'm beginning to get marked. People are not believing me. Okay, my symptoms are getting worse. I'm getting thinner and thinner. I've always been a strong person. I'm losing all my muscle mass. I'm not doing well. And so at this one particular time, I had been in an emergency room 2 weekends in a row. It always fell on a Friday night when the doctor's office was closed. It seemed like it was the 3rd weekend, and I called my friend Chris that was in Denver with me, and I said, Chris, you've got to come get me. I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm going to die. I don't know if it's an appendicitis or what, but I'm not going to make it through the night. During this time also, because I can't eat, my BGs are dropping. They're going like into the low 50s, higher 40s. That's when you can go into diabetic coma. I'm a sick girl. So she comes and gets me, and this is when God begins to infuse himself into the situation. Chris comes to me, she said, Shellie, I'm not taking you to the same ER. I am worried something bad is going to happen tonight if we go there. I was feeling the same thing. Forgive me. So we go to a different hospital. I'm talking to the head nurse. Now I'm exhibiting some new symptoms. This has been happening for a few days. I'm running into walls. I can't keep my balance. I'm not able to think straight. I'm talking gibberish. I'm not making sense. I'm in the ER talking to the head nurse, and my friend is there, and I say something, and they look at me shocked. And right after that, they admit me into the hospital. Again, God is working. I would later ask Chris, what did I say that shocked you so bad? She said, Shellie, you told me you were going to die that night. And the nurse told me after you left that people in the ER, when they say they're going to die, they often do. So I was admitted, and another miracle was that the doctor that was on call that night was a Christian man. He took the time to pore over my medical records, as did that head nurse, at the same time, separately from one another. It brought her to tears, it brought him to anger. He came back to me later, he was heated. He said, Shellie, they have dropped the ball on you numerous times. If you hadn't come here that night, you would probably have died. You need emergency surgery. It is your gallbladder. So they prepped me for surgery, but guess what? I can't have surgery. I'm so malnourished, and my potassium is so low that they have to stabilize me. So they're stabilizing me. My family comes and says goodbye to me. This is COVID, right? So you can have one visitor, which is really hard when you're hurting like that. You just want to be with your family. But they had to leave, and I understood. But once again, God jumps into the situation, and he allows Dagger to have family leave time. He gets like 2 months to help me get through this time. So I'm in the hospital, I have surgery, the doctor comes to me, he says, Shellie, your gallbladder was full of gangrene. You had been sick for a while. Had you not come in, it could have been very serious. And you had gallstones the size of large walnuts. So we got all of that out, but we have a problem. And right now I've got a bulb on the outside of my body that's catching the bile and all the fluids that's coming out of my abdomen. And he said, we have a problem because you've got a little bile duct that isn't closing. The problem with that is a couple of things. Number one, there's nobody in the Grand Valley that's qualified to operate on me because my system is very different from yours. I won't get into all the details why. But the only one that could operate on me is a specialist in Denver. And if you don't get a surgery, you could wear that bulb on the outside of your body for the rest of your life. I'm thinking, what? I'm 50 years old. What's happening to my life? And so, of course, they wanted to fly me to Denver, but the insurance company doesn't want to pay for that. You know, how expensive is that? This is when we're having mudslides in the Glenwood Springs Canyon. Weather is bad, but anyway, the passes open up long enough. Dagger gets me in the car, we go to fly to Denver. That many hours on a car when you're hurting the way I did is absolutely excruciating. But we make it to Denver, we go to the specialist, and guess what? If he cannot find that little bile duct. We get back in the car, drive all the way home. It was a long, hard trip. I was so weak that Dagger has to help me walk at this time. So we get home, but once again, God comes down and he heals my little bile duct and he closes it. So now I've got this bulb on the outside of my body. I wear it for about 6 months. It's got all this tubing that's inside of me. I have to have that removed. I go to the doctor's office. Now this is a doctor I met when I was in the hospital. I love him. I'm in his office, it's just him and me, and he has to pull that tubing out. It's adhered itself, it felt like it adhered itself to all my organs. And as he's pulling it out, I'm screaming. And I hate to keep talking about pain, there's not a better word, but all the pain I had experienced in my whole life, it felt like, was condensed in this 10-minute period while he's pulling that out. I thought it was absolutely felt like torture. He gets that out, I begin to eat, I begin to get better. Trial over. So then I decide we need a new church. And the reason I say that, we were going to a wonderful church up on Orchard Mesa. It's too far to drive. Dagger's working nights. I am alone all day. While he sleeps, I'm alone all night. I am not around people. I'm dying inside. I need to be around people. I need to have people praying for me. I'm still really sick and trying to recuperate. Well, I remember that lady who had made me soup when I broke my femur. And I had visited her church a couple times, and she was always really nice to me. And I thought, I'm going to check out that church. It's in my back door. It's like a mile away from my house. And so I started coming here. And I wanted to do anything and everything. If they had to sign up, I was signing up. Even with the men's breakfast, where do I sign up? I was going to be here. And so it was right before Easter when they have the art day. And one of those things is you can take chalk and you can paint on the sidewalk out front. Well, one of the groups I did at Mine Springs is I had an art music group, which I love, so I'm going to do a mural. Oh, so excited. I'm pumped. It's a beautiful day. I'm out there doing my mural. And I'm about a third of the way done, and I go to get more chalk. And I think probably I was like so excited about the day I wasn't paying attention. I can't see peripherally. I have horrible depth perception. I'm zipping back in a nice little clip, and I forget there's a curb. I hit that full on, bam, I'm on the sidewalk of my face. I black in my eyes, bend on my chin. I have to go, my son takes me to the ER. I have to get a brace on my arm. Another trial, but it's over. I begin to heal. Until a few months later, I start getting abdominal pain again. Okay, it's not my gallbladder. I go to my doctor. He says, let's send you to a specialist. Is this sounding familiar? I go to a new specialist, and he runs some tests. And he finds out there's a couple of surgeries I need. The worst of the two is that I have a really bad ulcer. When he does that surgery, he decides he's actually going to reconstruct my inside. So this is pretty major. I go in, I have these surgeries. He does everything he has to do. But I continue to get worse. I kind of ebb and flow. And I'm an optimist. So when I would do good, I would think, oh, it's all over. And then I would start doing bad again. I start going back to him. Well, as far as he's concerned, there is nothing wrong with me. And I've got that thing on my forehead, and he's looking at, I'm sure, at my medical records, and he's thinking, she wants payments. So he's ignoring me. And so my symptoms are getting worse and worse. I'm losing weight. I lost so much with the gallbladder that I don't have very far to fall. But good news. I haven't had a lot of enjoyment over these years now. We're getting towards, gosh, I don't know, 4 years or something. I get the news that my son, my eldest, is going to get married. To the most beautiful girl. I'm so excited. And as a mom, I have my dreams, right? I ordered the most beautiful, expensive dress I've ever owned in my life. I'm going to do first dance with my son. I'm going to do a toast. I've got a song I'm going to sing. I've got all these responsibilities. I'm so excited. We had kids live with us through the years. I'm going to dance with all the boys. I'm going to just be a social butterfly. As I'm getting closer and closer to the wedding, I'm not getting better. I'm getting worse and worse. I'm spending a lot of time alone. I'm beginning to lose my mind. I get COVID. The combination of the two does something to my brain that I can't even explain. To this day, my brain is still healing. As we're getting closer to the wedding, I begin to realize that I might not make it. I'm also beginning to realize I'm dying. And that I want to, because I can't do it anymore. It's too much. I can't go on. A week before the wedding, I get on the scale and I weigh 120 pounds. I weighed 140 in junior high. I've always been strong. I had no muscle left. I could count my ribs. I could feel my collarbone, my backbone. I was just skin and bones. And I knew this wasn't good. And I was going for 3 days at a time where I couldn't eat. I couldn't drink. I couldn't take my meds. I couldn't do anything. So a week before, that was a week before the wedding, 3 days before the wedding, I go back to that specialist, and I, for the first time in all of this, I begged for payments. I didn't care about the sign. I said, please, give me payments so I can go to my son's wedding, so I can act halfway normal. He said, fine, I'll give you payments. I'll give you a small prescription, but then I am done with you. You need to see a psychologist, a nutritionalist, and go back to your PCP. And if he runs the tests that you want to have run, they're going to come out negative. Sent me home. So I went to the wedding. I dressed up. I wish I could say I was able to be the social butterfly I wanted to be. I probably looked crabby that day. I probably didn't look very presentable. My hair had been falling out. I had this wig thing on. I dress up. After the wedding, I go into the hall, I find a chair that I sit in, people come to me. I didn't dance with all the kids. However, I did dance with my son. It was beautiful. I gave my toast, I sang my song. By the time I was done with that, it was almost 9:30 at night. My whole goal at that point was to walk out of that hall on my 2 feet. I wasn't going to pass out, and I wasn't going to have somebody carry me. And I got up and I left, and my niece came with me. She was going to be in town for about 3 days. Again, she sat with me as I suffered and just loved me. She began to help me problem solve. Let's get you on liquid vitamins, all this stuff. She went and got that stuff for me. She takes off, and then I have a choice to make. I lay on the couch for about a week, and I'm ready to die. I am dying. And, but guess what? I'm a warrior. I get up and I start fighting. I start eating. I'm very stubborn. I would just throw up multiple times a day. I would eat, throw up. I would have dry heaves that would last. You know, sometimes you get sick and you have dry heaves like for a few minutes or something. I was doing it like for 5. I would have it for so long I would just want to die on the floor when I was done. I was throwing up until fairly recently. I will say the wedding was October 1st, a year ago, and this October 1st I weighed and I have gained 15 pounds. So God began to heal me, and I have slowly become better and better. But the last thing to heal, because I was depleted physically, emotionally, and spiritually. I was now a shell of a person. I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know where I was going or what this was all about. And that is when I began to talk to God. And I said, God, you know, where were you? I didn't see you, I didn't feel you, I didn't hear you. Where were you? And I caught myself saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? And before I even said it, I caught my words. Have you heard those words before? I have. Now, I am not comparing my suffering to Jesus. There is no way. I'm not comparing my suffering to you or the people that are in Ukraine, on the Gaza Strip, in Israel. I'm not comparing my pain to the beautiful woman down the road that might have cancer or someone who's lost their child. But this was my place, and I was struggling. And I feel ashamed to share with you today that at that time, I think I was losing my faith. Not the faith in God. I had proven that a long time ago. My dilemma was maybe God didn't love me. The same question I'd had all those years before when I was going through my grief trials. And little by little, as I began to get better, and as my brain began to heal, and my brain is still healing, God began to talk to me. And I could hear him, and he said, and maybe you guys have been here before, you know, where when you're talking to God, all you get is silence. Have you ever been there? Are you there today? But anyway, now that I was healing, I was able to hear God. I think when you're in really bad pain physically and emotionally, it is hard to hear God. But now because I was healing, I could hear his voice, and he said, Shellie, I gave you your heart's desire. You told me that you wanted to work with people in grief, that you wanted to be able to sit with them, understand them. And you went through grief trials, and you were able to do that, and you're good at it. And you've been wonderful in that. You have become my hands. You told me, Shellie, you wanted to work with people in chronic pain. Chronic pain is a whole new monster. You have to have had it to really understand it. You know how to sit with somebody in chronic pain. You know when to talk, when not to talk, how to love them. You can be my feet. Shellie, and I remember this, you told me you wanted to work with people that are dying and their families. In America, we don't talk about death. It is a hard thing to talk about. We don't have necessarily a healthy way of knowing how to deal with that. You know what it's like to almost die. And then he told me something that was unusual. He said, well, look up the word death doula. I like to call it end-of-life doula. I looked up what that is, and what that is a person that walks beside people that are terminally ill. People that are grieving, have chronic pain, and who are dying. He said, Shellie, I gave you on-the-job training. You are equipped. You are powerful. You are a warrior. You can make a change in this world. You do every day. Get up and fight. Do the work for me. You can be my feet, my hands, and my mouth. And that was just really powerful for me. And so I think back on that couple that said, whatever you do, Shellie, just keep on holding on the hand of God. And I see this picture of like a parent holding onto their child's hand. And if there's a calamity going on and you're holding onto your 5-year-old's little hand, and the world is just falling apart around them, you don't expect them to hold onto your hand, right? I think through my life there were multiple times when I was trying to hold on, but I wound up letting go. But you know what? As a parent, what do? The parent's holding on to that child's hand. God had been holding on to me, and every time I slipped away, he grabbed me. He has been through me, beside me, my whole life. He is so tender and beautiful with me. I'm closer with Jesus than I've ever been. He is so wonderful. And today, you know, you may be in that place where you don't have hope, where you are hurting, where you don't know if you can make it to the end. I implore you to just keep listening, keep trying. Try to feel the hand of God. He is beside you. He's beside me right now. He's beside you. He's here in this room. So in conclusion, I'd like to say just a couple of things. One, I believe we are all warriors. When you go through trials in your life, even was right. You know, I could have gone through life and not had any trials. I'm sure I'd be a nice person. I'd probably be more shallow. I wouldn't be as empathetic or understanding. I wouldn't be the powerful person I am today. I might look like an old, skinny woman to you, but man, don't underestimate me. I will fight, and I'll probably start lifting weights. I'm about ready to do that again, by the way. But anyway, we do go through our trials. When I die, I get to take with me these things I have learned. My knowledge, my compassion, my understanding. I can go into a fire instead of running out of it. I can meet people where they're at. That is such a gift. And in the process, it helps heal me. So I implore you, if you know somebody that is in pain and who is suffering, and you don't know what to do, make them a bowl of soup, knock on their door, sit on their couch, and just love them. Just be with them, even if it's in silence. It's such a gift. There are so many people in this world suffering right now. Just be aware and keep your eyes open. Thank you for being patient with me. So if I may, I would like to spend a moment to pray with you before I leave. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the glorious God that you are. I know there are people today hurting. I know there are people that are suffering, maybe people that can't even talk about it. I pray for those people, Father, that you fill them with your Spirit, that you help them to hear your voice, Father, and help those of us that we are able to touch the world, to take the things that we have learned and spread that. We need that in this world. We are called to be a light. Help us to be that light. And Father, thank you for no matter what, you never let go of our hand. You are there every day, time and time again, even when we don't realize it. You're in the background working out things for our best interest. I am so glad of the person I am, Father. That is because you have been molding me all of these years. We thank you, and that we're able today to worship in peace and be able to share with one another, because we need people. We need each other. So thank you so much. And I just pray for each and every person in this room, Father, especially those that are going through a hard time, or those that have been. Help people to heal. Help people to come through these difficult times. And I pray this all in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.